Good. So my name is Mary Harris. I am a reporter and a host at WNYC Public Radio. I hosted a podcast called Only Human for a little while. And this discussion is called Question Everything. But I have to tell you that when I was putting this together and thinking about it over the last couple of weeks, I actually thought about it with a different name, like a slightly PG-13 name. Which is this. So I don't know if any of you are fans of Flight of the Conchords. This is a song from Flight of the Conchords. And it's about what happens when you're in a space, you're at a club, you're at a wedding, you're at a bat mitzvah, whatever, and there are just too many dudes up in the space. And ladies look at it and they go like, nah, like I'm good. And I really feel like this isn't a conversation about too many men in podcasting, although that's kind of what this whole event is about, right? But it's more about who has the power and why that matters and what happens at this particular moment in podcasting. Because I really do feel like we're at a very particular moment where you can still do it at home in your jammies and make an amazing product that gets very popular. But there are also a lot of people coming into this space with money, and money makes decisions really quickly. It's just the way it works. And so I want to talk about these power dynamics and kind of where we are and where we go from here. I want to take this moment and think about what are the things that we're putting in place that we like, that we don't like? Are we making space for like the weird and wonderful voices that we want to hear? And I'm super excited to do it with Starlee and Helen. You probably know both of them, but I'll just introduce them super fast. Starlee from This American Life and also from Mystery Show, of course. Helen from the Allusionist, which is a podcast on Radiotopia, and also Answer Me This. And I wanted to talk to them about this because I feel like they're both really strong architects of their own audio worlds. It's just something they do really, really well. And I think as a woman and also as someone who was a producer for years and years and years, I'll just speak personally, I got really good at like crossing things off lists and checking boxes and making sure I did things right and making sure I followed the rules. And I feel like these women are particularly good at writing the rules themselves. And I really feel like that's what this moment in podcasting is about, and it's what we need to do. It's what we need to think about as we do this. Okay, I'm gonna get right into it. I'm gonna start with Helen, because you and your friend Ali launched Answer Me This in 2007, which was a while ago.
Ancient, yeah, Jesus.
So was there like a rule book for podcasting back then?
We had a copy of Podcasting for Dummies, which was so complicated that it almost stopped us before we began. And we're Oxford graduates. That's how like dumb we are that we were bested by Podcasting for Dummies. But otherwise, no, and there were no other podcasters we could ask, so we just had to make it up as we went along, and it was like that for years. And I'd never worked on anyone else's production either, because the reason why we did a podcast is nobody would employ us in radio. So I still don't know how that works. And I could be doing things in the wrong way, but it's also quite liberating because it's not like there's a structure that it's difficult to deviate from. I just do things that seem like the most sensible or most streamlined way to do them.
Did you follow the rules in the rule book?
I don't know what they are. I've never learned.
You know, you launched The Allusionist on Radiotopia a few years ago, and I just wonder how it was different. Like, what had changed in that time, and what did you do differently when you launched that podcast?
Well, when I started Answer Me This, I'd never edited audio before, so I learned to do that. So at least with The Allusionist, I knew how to do that, but I didn't know anything else. I'd never made a show like that before. I hadn't hosted something solo. And but I knew people would be listening. Answer Me This could get good without that many ears on it, and that was nice because we could experiment and make mistakes. It didn't really matter. Whereas The Allusionist, I felt a little bit terrified that people would hear the early ones, and I didn't really want them to. What's changed? But it's still like my methodology is still the same. I'm still producing everything myself. Like it's still a one-person operation essentially. I do get dressed, so it's not necessarily pajamas, but I will do it sitting in bed most of the time.
What was different about launching a podcast on your own versus launching with a network?
Well, Radiotopia made it financially viable to do it. So I'd wanted to do a second podcast for a long time, but it would have just been financially ruinous. So that, they deal with all the back end. There's a community, which is delightful, really. We're in a very good situation with Radiotopia because we have complete ownership of our shows and complete creative control. And then people at PRX help with all the technological stuff and the ad sales and emotional support. And we have each other. So it's this incredible situation, really. It's just so nice not to be worrying all the time about how to pay my rent. And that leaves more space for creative fear to creep in instead. So refreshing.
So Starlee, you started Mystery Show in 2015. Like, did you, what rules were you trying to follow and what rules were you trying to break?
With like the creative part of Mystery Show?
Yeah.
Oh, I was trying to follow my rules. I had some preliminary rules that were the structure of the show, which was it has to be a mystery that you can't Google, that you can't find the answer on Google. And I wanted to solve it. But those were like just, like that's what the structure of the show was. And then as I started making the show, I realized there were other rules that I was taking on, that I was forming as I was making it.
Like what?
So like, and that's what was so interesting about creating it and realizing how many, like it was, that the need for my own rules was important.
Yeah.
And it became, like one of the rules was, like you never hear archival, there's a episode about Welcome Back Kotter, and you never hear Welcome Back Kotter, sound from Welcome Back Kotter. It's only my analysis of Welcome Back Kotter and then the detective's analysis. So it's all from this kind of subjective way into the show instead of like on radio, you'll often hear, they'll talk about something and then you hear the clip come on, you hear it kind of light in the beginning and then it gets louder and you hear the clip, and it was really, it wasn't like it was a conscious rule where I was like, at first, I'm definitely not going to do it. But then as soon as I thought about it, I was like, that would sound so wrong.
So you didn't even try it with the sound?
No, because as soon as it occurred to me, I was like, I know that does not belong in this show. And it was like gospel to me. Like I was so certain that I was right in terms of what I wanted. And then every time that would happen, I'd be like, oh, I just figured out a new rule.
Did you write them down?
Yeah, as I began to realize that I was collecting them, because I didn't go into it thinking that was going to happen. There's also like, I kind of have this like rule about the people who are on the show. I don't like academics. I don't like experts. Like I didn't want anybody who you normally hear on a show who's like, now we're bringing in that person. I didn't want professors. Like I wanted it to be that feeling of, first of all, coming across the mystery was really important. And so like I didn't want it to be something that was had been analyzed in the past and someone already had a theory. I wanted it to be like kind of occurring to them as I talked to them. And then there's also just like I have my own personal kind of list of people who would not belong in the show. Like I would never have like the CEO of Goldman Sachs on it or something. Like to me, it really does. There's a universe of it. There's like an underdog quality, and there's even like weirder things where I was like, Jake Gyllenhaal belongs on Mystery Show, but Ryan Gosling doesn't. And like I can't even explain exactly. Like definitely, obviously, Britney versus Taylor Swift. I feel like everyone can understand that, but there's kind of more even mysterious to me things that I'm like, no, there are people when I hear them, I'm like, they fit into the world of it.
So a Taylor Swift mystery you literally would not solve.
There's no mystery there.
There's no mystery. Well, yeah, it's a little bit of mystery of like, what the like what the fuck. But other than that, I feel she's not a citizen of that world. And Britney obviously was. Like the pathos of Britney Spears is something that I'm so drawn to, and it really did. To me, like Britney juxtaposed with the Ticketmaster guy, Dennis, to me, like they fit on this spectrum that makes so much sense to me. And none of this was conscious. Like with the Ticketmaster guy, I didn't even know he was going to be on the show. And then as soon as I talked to him, I was like, oh, this is what this show is. And it was like it was as much me discovering the clues to the mystery as me discovering what the show was as I made it.
Yeah. Was it difficult to, like, did you ever have any issues with creative control since you were operating?
Yeah. Well, yeah. I mean, I had slight issues in terms of, like, because there was ads, the show, there would be moments when it wasn't quite ready, and then I realized, oh, when you have ads, that trumps whether your personal feeling about whether the show's ready, and that was I had a hard time with that. And then I also had the issue that I had with creative control was me being like, I truly believe I know what it takes that the show has to be, and it has to be at a certain level. and that kind of coming at a time when it felt like good enough was kind of ushering its way into like the podcast. You know, like the landscape changed very fast. It happened so fast, and so I felt like that was I mean, for the most part, I got to have creative control. I made every creative decision on that show, and everything was mine. But I started to feel that push and pull of how decisions would start to be made based on things
by forces bigger than you, or
this is bigger, and it's not always like a decision won't always get made, an edit won't always get done because it's best for the show or the quality. It's more about a timetable that has started to move forward.
Yeah,
which was new because also, I mean, I started doing Mystery Show. I started working on it like 6 months after Serial came. Like I know there's different times when the podcast thing started, but that was definitely the big change as far as
it was the push.
Yeah, there's been a few different pushes, but that was a big one in terms of money can be made, is what I feel like was the change. And so that, I feel like I was starting to get a taste of that in terms of creative control stuff.
Yeah. So I want to talk about ads a little bit.
Yeah.
Because you guys both have taken really creative approaches to ads, and I think it's really important to talk about that and like how they came about. And I also kind of want to inspire people here to take a few risks they might not be taking, and sort of listen to what you guys did and think about that in their own context. So Helen, I'm going to start with you.
Oh, thank you.
I'm going to start with this ad from Answer Me This, which is so.
Oxford in again.
Sorry. Can I explain why what we're about to hear is like what we're about to hear?
Yes, please.
So when we started taking ads on Answer Me This, it was early 2010, and at the time, I mean, I know people are much more habituated now to hearing characterful ads, but then it was a bored-sounding third party saying, for a free Audible audiobook, go to blah, blah, blah. And we were like, oh, we make a comedy show. We really don't want that. That's not really going to fit in with our irreverent bullshit material. And also, we felt this kind of shame that we needed money. And like, I was really poor. We definitely needed money. We wanted to be paid for the 3 days a week we were spending on the show. So we thought, we have to make these ads as stupid as possible to fit in with the show. I don't know if any of the rest of you have written 22 different jingles about Squarespace, but I have.
We can play one.
You would think there weren't 22 things to say about Squarespace, and there aren't. So that forces you to be very creative to find new things to say. I don't know if you've ever helped your mum build a website. It is the kind of torment from which there is no respite. If she asks, what's a widget again? I will kill her with a rusty spike, or a brick, or a spade, or a chainsaw.
But Squarespace is so easy, even your mum can use it. She can drag and drop and cut and paste, that's all there is to it. So Helen, put that spike down, I beg you. For Christ's sake, don't do it!
Sorry, Mum.
Okay.
22.
It's funny because it's true.
It is true, yes. I mean, we come from a very true place in our Squarespace ads, which are our best work.
Did you tell them ahead of time?
Sorry?
Did you tell them ahead of time what you were going to do, Squarespace?
No. Well, we said, this is what we do, and that's what you'll get. And they said, okay. And then when about number 9 of the jingles, we were like, this one, like, surely at some point they're going to be like, absolutely not, guys. And all the feedback we got from them was, we do so enjoy sharing these around the office. So I think they just continue sponsorship for us just for their own amusement. But I do feel like we're kind of on borrowed time. So the Allusionist ads, they're a bit more sedate because it's not a comedy show outright. But they'll send scripts saying, the highlighted parts must be as written. And I was like, they'll never know. So I rewrite all the ads myself because I want them to sound in my style, and that means the listeners will listen to them more and they won't be quite as dull. And I feel like that might not be something I can get away with for all that much longer, the way things are going.
Well, that's interesting.
I'm going to die on this hill.
I think they're going more in that direction, though, actually. I think the good ads that are actually getting the money are the more irreverent, them actually, like the hosts being themselves. I think it's actually now catching up in a way that they're paying more money for those kind of ads.
That's interesting. You think it's going to end. You think it's going to.
Well, I think you have companies moving into the space that don't understand podcasts as much. Like Squarespace are cool, Audible are cool, because they've been in it for such a long time. They get podcasts and they get how people incorporate podcasts into their lives. And I think new companies, they've heard they're a thing, but they think they should do old-style advertising where it's just much more kind of didactic and shouty. And I don't know whether they'll want the playful stuff. But the fact is people don't skip over my ads as much as they do the ones that are dull. Well,
but that's what I think they're figuring out. I think they're figuring out that the ones that you don't skip
Zaltzman
over are the ones...
People stick with them.
Yeah.
Yes. Yeah. So, Starlee, I want to talk to you because you talked about, I would never have the CEO of Goldman Sachs on my show.
I would never,
were there ads you wouldn't take?
Yeah, there's so many. I mean, I think I'm a problem because... sometimes, in a way, I think I'm a problem. And then I hear, when I think about... to me, the best ads that are being done are the Positive America ads. And I feel like those guys... go all over the place, and I actually listen to them, and I feel like I don't know, I've never talked to them about this, but I feel like I can hear a kind of mission statement of what they're taking on, and so maybe it wouldn't be a problem. I used to be like, oh, you have, I wouldn't do a bank ad, I wouldn't do a credit card ad. I have a list. I actually have made the list of things I wouldn't do, and I look at it sometimes and I feel all self-satisfied, but I actually mean it. I couldn't do it. And so I would have to, and a lot of it revolves around financial institution stuff. But I also went to at one point I went to that, remember when we were boycotting the companies that supported Trump?
Yeah.
I went to that Take the Wallet site, and I was trying to figure out, I was really trying to think about each company and think about why they were on there, and I was I feel like I'm gathering that list.
Right.
But I think, and I do, I feel like I went from thinking, oh, this would be, no one would agree to this but now I kind of think the landscape is moving towards companies that are around a certain, they're selling by selling the idea of the company, it's part of it's the ads that you sign on to.
Yeah.
And there's there's a way to make money off that.
For people who may not know, what's an example of a Pod Save America ad that you think really worked?
I think that, I feel like I'm not just going to do an ad for I'm doing double ads. I'm talking to, I feel like we have, I just feel like in general, you can hear their friendship come across in it, and it works, and it's not, they also kind of make fun of the product in a way that I think is good, and I think that's effective, and I think they fold their mission around the companies. It could be all bullshit, I don't know, but I think there's a way to have a company that you can kind of sell. That's part of the selling point. I remember when I did the Kind snacks ads.
Yeah.
The selling point was the show is a Kind show, so that's why you guys would fit in, and I had no problem with that. And I eat Kind bars every day, and I really do. I eat so many of them.
We have one of those ads because I found this one so utterly charming.
Support for Mystery Show also comes from Kind Snacks. Kind snacks are made from ingredients you can see and pronounce, which brings me to the next installment of the ingredient list. Jalapenos. Jalapenos are rated as moderately spicy peppers, but it's not just peppers you can rate for spiciness. Caitlin, what do we do after everyone's left the office?
We categorize everyone in the office into categories. We did Mad Men, high school stereotypes.
So I have a new category game.
Okay.
Who's the spiciest person in the office?
Spicy to me is sassy, wears a lot of bracelets. It's probably me. What can I say?
Several seconds later,
I don't know if I'm the spiciest. I think you might be spicier. You have a wave of spice around you. It just comes in, whoosh, elevator door. Ding.
Clearly, an outside opinion was needed.
Chris, we just need you to settle a tie.
Is this a Mad Men thing where you rank the entire office?
Who's spicier, me or Caitlin?
You.
Jalapenos, the Kind snack ingredient you can see, pronounce, and categorize. Stay tuned for next week's installment of the ingredient list, cinnamon, and do the Kind thing for your world.
Being spicy in that office really paid off for me in the end. I will say the thing I'm most proud about those Kind ads is not a single one of those ads is about a Kind bar. I think it is, I've yet to hear an ad be an ad not about the product. And every time I hear an ad, I'm I'm the only one who like pulled it off. I never advertised the product, and I feel like that. And I was kind of waiting for people to like pick up on that and be like, we don't need to advertise the product.
Right.
But
no. Yeah. Okay, so I want to play a moment from Mystery Show that I really loved because as a producer, I listened to it and anyway, I'm just going to set it up. So this is in the Britney Spears episode. You've spent the whole episode trying to get an answer about why your friend's book was being carried by Britney Spears. And the whole show has played. And then at the very end, if you listen past the credits, you hear this.
This is the photo.
This is a photo. They're looking at a photo of her and Britney Spears.
Oh my God. I'm gonna cry. Oh my God. There's something so funny about her face. Oh, do you know I have this thing that I cry when I laugh? Do you know I have this? I have this like thing, like ever since I had the baby, where my emotional signals get crossed, and if I laugh too hard, it crosses over into sadness, and it's not like I'm laughing out of like, I'm not crying out of happiness. Like I get depressed. Her face just really killed me. This picture is amazing.
Okay, so I worked in TV for a really long time, and then I worked in radio, and I feel like it's very typical to do something like go to our website and see the photo of the thing, and like we'll try to drive traffic there. And what I think is really great about this is like this is at the end of the show. You may not even get to it, but if you do get to it, it becomes a tease that's unlike any other tease I've heard before. It just creates tension. So how did you think about it when you made it?
I liked the idea that you get a little Easter egg at the end if you like listen to the whole thing. But another one of my rules was I had a rule where I didn't ever want it to be attention drawn to the fact that you're listening to a radio show, and so I always wanted to be the detective. And so there was even like tape I would edit where somebody there was this one point when I was talking to one of the guys from the Welcome Back Kotter story, and he's talking about meeting Phil Spector, and he said Phil Spector has these headphones on. He was wearing these big headphones. He's like the kind you're wearing. And I like edited. It was really hard to edit it out because he like was kind of like maybe he laughed over it or something. And I was like, I'm getting this out because I didn't want anything to be like
about you.
No, it could be about me, but it wasn't about it being a radio story. It had to be this world. And then the other thing was I didn't want it to ever be like go to www. I wanted even the credits, everything to be part of the world that you just went through. Nothing was about a means to the end to get to this thing. Even when I would say. I would have these like puzzles that you could solve in the credits, but it was never like go to the website. Like I didn't a website felt like a modern technology thing that was not in this world. And so then every single thing in Mystery Show was supposed to be just you've entered this world for this time, and this is the experience you're having. And it's never just it never is to promote something else because that's not what is the point of it.
Right. Okay. You guys all really want to see the picture now after that, right? Yeah. Okay. There you go.
Oh. I have so many regrets about what I wore. I can't, yeah. I had a sweater on, and it was like, it was so nerve-wracking, the whole experience, but when I'm like, if I ever get really rich, I'm gonna hire professionals to like CGI, like another outfit, because I feel like I wanna love this picture as much as I should.
As you should.
Yeah. Would you Photoshop into like one of Britney's iconic looks? Like
Maybe.
red PVC jumpsuit or something?
The kind of wealth that I'm imagining achieving in this scenario, I could do whatever I wanted, yeah. It's a good idea. Or maybe just Britney at home in like casual wear.
Okay, so I put this here because I loved this GIF, but also because I was talking to a friend who works in TV who was talking to me about how on all the shows he's worked on, they have a show Bible where it's just like the rules of the show. And it was one of those moments where I thought about it in terms of the content I'd created, and I was like, I wish I'd done that. Like, it was just something I'd never thought to do, but I was like, that's so genius, because it's like you're being very intentional about what you're doing. Everyone knows what you're doing. It's a contract. You're agreeing on it. And so, Starlee, I know you worked in TV after Mystery Show ended, so I'm kind of wondering what you took away from that, and whether there are sort of lessons from the writer's room that you think podcasters should be taking.
Yeah, and we're not going to go back to, I was going to say something about signposting too from last time.
Go for it, yeah.
The other thing, because it said signposting on there. It said signposting up there too, right?
Yeah.
The other thing I do think that podcasts do a lot is signposting. You guys know what signposting is? Where you say either like, coming up, but it's not even like coming up after the ad. It'll be like, the show will start and they'll be like, how the story of a venture capitalist turned into a bunny rabbit or something, and they kind of like tell you what you're about. They think that you have to know what you're going to listen to before you, in order for you to listen.
Right.
And then throughout the episode, they'll signpost like, this is before he turned into a thing, and you're just like, it's throughout, and I feel like it happens all the time now.
That's quite a radio thing, because I think a lot of podcasts are still like radio, expecting you to tune in halfway through.
Exactly.
But podcast, everyone has listened from the beginning.
Well, that's what I think. I think signposting got carried over from that, and now there's no reason to signpost, but it still has become one of the weird
things that you just have to do.
And I feel like I just want to like call awareness to it and try to like take it down, because
Stop
I feel
it.
Yeah, stop it. Like, I feel like if this is going to be like an educational thing. I do feel strongly that signposting has become an epidemic, and so I feel like just be in mind of it.
See, mine's the opposite way. I think I get a lot of people who are like, help, and I was like, I thought it was strongly implied.
I love that.
Not enough.
But I love that, and also like your show has that like the breeziness of it. I feel like is the energy of it is part of it, and you're kind of on the ride. And I feel like does that seem insulting?
No, not at all.
Okay.
I was very flattered. No,
okay.
I just have a squint.
Yeah, but I feel like and the signposting is the kind of thing that like stops that, because it's not trusting the audience. It's okay it's okay if they're confused for a while, or it's okay. What you don't want them to turn off, and boring is what makes people turn something off. Mm-hmm. And like
instead of knowing what's next.
Yeah, like you don't want to just be like constantly checking in. There is a way. I mean, you can confuse people. There's definitely episodes of something where I'm like, I cannot follow this, but still I think that risk is better than being like checking in and just being like, are you sure? Don't worry, something's about to happen, or something exciting is going to happen in 30 minutes. And I just feel like that's not, it dilutes the experience of experiencing the exciting thing.
So like tease rather than pre-cap.
Yeah, yes. But tease in a way that makes sense with the actual story. Like if it works, if it's in service of like the narrative anyway.
But you raised this point, which is like, I think that's a carryover from radio, right? And I think there is a lot of stuff in podcasting that's a carryover from radio, just because that's where a lot of podcasts are coming from. And I just wonder if that's even the best model. Like, is radio the best model for what podcasting is doing, or should we be looking elsewhere?
Yeah, well, that's the thing. So I worked in this TV show, this writer's room, and are they here? My friends here? They were threatening to come. They're naughty. But I worked in a writer's room, and have you worked in it? So, I worked in a writer's room, and it was a narrative. It was called Search Party, the show, and it's a scripted narrative show about a mystery, and I found it really, really interesting, because you like the challenge of like figuring out a whole narrative. You don't start writing the episode until you know the entire arc of the season. Mm-hmm. And like just watching it all get chipped away, where you like have the big ideas, and then you like figure out where you're leading towards, and then you start to fill out the episodes. And I was like, it was really fun to learn new things that I didn't know, and a new way of doing things. And then that was before that. I worked on season 1 and season 2 of Search Party, but in between those 2 seasons, I worked on S-Town, like helped structure the narrative of S-Town, and I totally applied
what you learned
from the writer's room to that, more than something I'd learned from a radio story. I mean, I think it was a combination of things that I learned making Mystery Show, like what I figured out, but there were like index cards on boards, and we were moving things around, and even though S-Town was a real guy, you could still, when it came to the overall narrative arc of a season, I found working in the television model like influenced it more. Like even things where like thinking about how episodes like both contain an episode, but you want to leave them wanting more. But it's not just being like part 1 and part 2, it's being like, we were just told a story in this episode. We know the theme of each episode, but there's also the way, what it's leading toward is like a thing that makes you want to then start the next one.
Right.
And I feel like TV's amazing at that.
Yeah, just leaving people hanging. You know, when you started...
Yeah. But leaving people hanging, but not in a part 1, not only in a cliffhanger way. There's a reason that you should end episodes instead of just being like, this is where we decided to end because we want another part. That's the difference. It's like, this makes sense why this episode ended here, but there's also more to tell.
Right.
Yeah, and just trust the audience to be smart and curious enough to deal with it rather than need you hand-holding them.
Yeah, and then make an also interesting show that people want to keep listening to. Like, there's all that, instead of just being like, we instruct you to do if there's a 2-parter, we instruct you to, you will just listen to the second part because we told you there's 2 parts, instead of giving them the real, like, compelling reason why they want it to be 2 parts.
Yeah.
And listen to the second part.
When you started out, you said, when you were doing Answer Me This, that it was like kind of like a clip reel. You were like hoping that a broadcaster would look at it and like you would be on TV or be on the radio. Do you even still hope for that anymore?
No, because what could be better than doing exactly what I want? But at the time, there wasn't a way it felt to make enough money to live off it, or even any money. So for a while, the value of Answer Me This was getting us other jobs. And I think you were asking me, had I ever worked in a writer's room? As a result of Answer Me This, a producer of Britain's crudest game show was a fan of Answer Me This, so got us in to write. The writer's room was a cupboard full of, like, huge rubber boobs and, like, props like that, because it was like we're just writing dick jokes all day. And, like, one day the boss came in and, like, stuck this, like, 1.5 foot long dildo on my desk. And I was like, in any other job, this would be a tribunal, but here he just needs to keep it somewhere. It was a prop. Anyway, I can't remember. Sorry, that's irrelevant.
So you don't want to go back to the writer's room, or you do want to go back to the writer's room?
You don't feel like you no longer see like a podcast as a way to getting on TV.
It was like, initially it was means to other ends, and then it became the end in itself. But I couldn't allow myself to think of that end until pretty shortly before The Allusionist started, and it became my full-time gig.
Yeah. Yeah.
I feel very torn.
Tell me about that.
I mean, I feel there was a time when I was making Mystery Show, I would get all these, there was a lot of like TV people that approached, because it's what happens when you make the thing that is like the popular thing in the moment, then the TV people come, and then when your thing's over, then they like retreat. Like that's what, there's like a whole rhythm to it. And then, it would come, and then
wave a big rubber penis in front of you.
Yeah, exactly. Hit you in the face with it, and then move back into the cupboard, or push you in the cupboard and close the doors until the next time. But like I remember there was a time. Like,
did you want to do that?
So the thing is, like, what I find interesting about my own confused brain is that, like, when I was making Mystery Show, those TV people would come, and I remember, like, the conversation I had. The reason I worked on Search Parties because TBS had come to me and said, would you ever want to make Mystery Show a TV show? And at the time, I, like, believed in podcasts so much that I was like, no, I actually don't. I'm doing exactly what I want to be doing. I have complete control over it. I didn't love the idea of doing, like, a documentary version of a TV show, too. Like, the Mystery Show, just the way it was, with visuals, didn't seem more appealing to me, because I felt like the medium made sense for what it was. And and I still, whenever I think about making it into a TV show, it would have to change and be adapted and have a reason for existing on TV. But then I worked on a TV show and I really enjoyed it. But it was scripted. It was very different. And then podcasts, and my experience with podcasting and podcasts, the industry has changed so much even since then, that I look back at when I, like, so with such confidence, like totally from, like, my heart said, no, I just don't want to do that. I just want to do a podcast. And I don't think I don't feel that way anymore. I envy your
It'll pass, don't worry. I'm aware it's only downhill now.
Yeah.
I do dream of The Allusionist on ice.
That could definitely still happen.
Okay, so I'm curious if these ladies in here want to try to kind of write their own rules. Are there any steps you guys recommend? Like, here's something you should do right now, tomorrow, with your podcast that would, like, help you creatively break through in some way.
I mean, this is going to be bad to say it in this room, but I would suggest being uninformed and not coming to events like this and not learning anything, so that you have to figure it out yourself. and find an original way to do it. Rather than feeling like, oh, this is the way, and following steps that have been preordained.
But
Sorry.
I think it's. But I think
Get out now.
I think you're right. I mean, I think you can still come to these things because you make friends, and everyone will probably leave with. I used to have like a equation. Like I've gone to some artist residencies, and I would average like 3 friends who stayed my friends for like that year, and then like 1 actual friend that lasted. Like I'm always like, I'm really into like the numbers of like how many real friends am I going to get out of any life, like this kind of weird fake reality self-contained experience. And
how many conference friends will you keep?
Yeah, how many conference friends? Well, who will be the real friend?
Right,
like how many
exactly.
people are going to like outlive the conference friend part?
Right. Look to your left. Look to your right.
Yeah.
One of the,
yeah. Because you guys will stay friends for like, I mean, you'll go back to New York or LA and all that, and
It's like a holiday romance, but in conferences.
And then, but one of them will last. Everyone will probably get like 1 longer friend out of this. So I think you can still come, but I do agree that the best thing you can do in making your own show is to not try to sound like another show. Like, don't do that. Which I think happens I truly think it does happen in radio and podcasts more. I think what happens is every medium, people start off being inspired, right?
Yeah.
And there's like, you become a musician and by playing the songs of the people that you love, but then you find your own voice, and it happens, I feel like there's a lot, and in other industries like painters and even in TV, it's about making your original thing. I think there's a weird thing that happens in radio where like, you're not told that there's one more step to do.
People don't find their own voices.
They're not encouraged, and it's not like you're not totally discouraged when you don't find your own voice.
People just say that you're doing well when like you're sounding like
instead of when you're sounding like I mean, there's so and so I think that's the thing is like there are other ways of doing things, and it's by you finding your own thing.
Yeah, or stealing inspiration from something completely different to audio.
Oh, totally.
Like in the 70s, my dad decided to stop being a management consultant and to become a sculptor, which was like he had a baby and another baby on the way. It was like a rash decision. He went to night school to study art, and after a very short amount of time, he's like, this is pretentious bullshit. And he went and did a course in industrial welding instead, which has been a lot more useful to him. So you need to find your industrial welding, is what I'm saying.
Okay,
no, it doesn't deserve that.
But it is true. But there is. I mean, definitely for me, my biggest inspiration from Mystery Show was not radio. Like,
what was your biggest inspiration?
Like TV and film. Like the feelings I would get because I'd worked on a show that I loved. Like I loved This American Life. I knew it very well. I had a very strong feeling of being like at first it wasn't conscious, and it definitely was conscious by the end of being like, every time I would do something that sounded like what This American Life did, I'd be like, that feels wrong. It does not belong here. That show already does it well. And it was like this very interesting thing where every single time, without me being aware of it, I'd be like, what is not feeling right? It would be like, I'd be having like an allergic reaction, and it'd be like me reacting to like This American Life trick. And it's not putting This American Life down, because they did it great. But the feeling that I really was going towards was the way I feel when I watch. It was kind of like the way I felt like watching movies and TV, even more as a kid, even not even like my adult experiences. Yeah. But just like that living inside something was directly from that.
Have you ever had to fight for like your creative vision with
Roman?
Radiotopia?
No, they don't want to have creative control. No, so I fight with myself plenty, which is the worst opponent. But it was kind of easier for me because I don't really consider myself a creative person, which is odd because I have a creative job. But I don't have a very reverential attitude towards creativity, having grown up with a sculptor who did industrial welding and never talked about his artistic motivations ever. And I think that's quite freeing because I can see I'm not too worried about like serving a vision because there isn't one. It's more like making something entertaining that has some value, that is interesting, it's not wasting listeners' time. And sometimes there's a deeper meaning that sneaks in underneath, but you can't like look at that directly. That is almost incidental. And every decision just feels really mundane. It's not like a big inspirational thing at all. Just like a plodder.
Yeah. And what's interesting to me
Yeah,
is you
are,
guys are really, you guys are really different. Like you have really different approaches, but I feel like you have this similar thing of just listening to your own voice, which is, I think, so important.
And I think I have quite a low boredom threshold for my own work.
Yeah.
And so you always like making it more
Always
difficult.
changing it.
But that's the thing too. Like, I do think I do think it's like the argument for why you make your own thing, because when it's your own thing, at least for me and I think for you, when you make your own thing, you just don't want it to be, you don't want to hate yourself, and you have to, like, no, I'm saying like when you don't want to hate what you can hate yourself separately, but I'm saying you don't want to
in your free time. You can hate
yeah.
yourself.
But like there's something about the entertaining. The passing the bar to yourself of what you would like to listen to, and getting to that point is a real tool.
Yeah. I think I have enough self-respect to trust my own judgment and enough self-loathing never to be satisfied with what I've done.
That's a good one to applaud too. That was better. Just kidding. They were all good.
Okay,
thanks.
I just want to thank you
It's
guys
been
for doing
very
this.
therapeutic for me.
I want to thank you guys both for doing this. This has been a really great conversation, so thank you for doing it. Coming up next is Esther Perel. She's a psychotherapist, host of Where Should We Begin? And she's going to look at the future of love, lust, and listening. Thank you, guys.